it has been a long time since we've reacted to H. Brandon's, reviews videos. Looks like he recently, 10 hours ago, a video uploaded, right? Finished Apothecary Diaries. I can't believe I'm saying this about the Apothecary Diaries, ... What a clickbait title. Of course he's gonna glaze, but if he shits on it, I would respect him a lot. Let's go.
So I just got done watching the Apothecary Diaries Season 1. This 24-episode anime, as Season 2 is going to be starting in about a week. So I wanted to get caught up. I've had a lot of people recommend it, and I knew I'd enjoy it when I got around to watching it. But initially when, it was airing, I was just too busy for me. And I was like, hey, if they're going to make a Season 2, I'll watch it closer to Season 2 so I can just...
Similar situation with us. I don't know why he didn't cover it. Probably just too much different animes to cover. I bet it would have done well for his channel, but for me, it's just the viewership was not there. Man, it sucked knowing that like it was peak because like everyone else's channels, bro, Apothecary Diaries and Frieden at the time too. That shit was popping off like fucking crazy, and I knew that's like I'm missing out, but thank God that we were able to, actually catch up on it recently as our channel's gotten bigger, and now we're ready to go into Season 2.
Jump in, and honestly, great decision, because now I have a week before I can see where the show's gonna go. But something strange happened when I was watching Season 1. See, I'm the type of person that if you don't like what you're watching, you should never force yourself to get to what's considered good, or if you get to this episode, it'll all make sense. No, like, you gotta enjoy what you are watching. And luckily...
That's fair. Well, it's nuanced take, right? If I'm not telling you to I'm not asking you to watch 100 episodes because that's when it actually starts getting good. But like 3 episodes or so, like a couple episodes, like if you just flat out hate it, then don't watch it. But if it's just like mid to you and people are saying, nah, bro, it might be mid for you right now, but in a couple episodes it becomes peak, I'd take the hit. I'll fucking check it out.
Every single episode out of these 24 was at the bare minimum good. Often it was pretty great. Sometimes even amazing. And there was a handful of episodes I was like, oh, that's some masterpiece level. Episode 4 comes to mind with the main character Mao's freak out, and just the emotion conveyed was fantastic.
Oh, that's a slap episode.
But something very strange happened in the final 2 episodes, 23 and 24, which I don't think I can recall myself feeling in any other show.
We just finished the Apothecary Diaries, obviously early access on Patreon and Twitch, but what happened? It was the reunion episode, right? Lakan being misdirected to be this like evil person, which he wasn't. He was a victim, and the beautiful reunion happened. It was really, it was beautiful.
See, this show starts off almost like a detective series in a way, where it's episodic kind of cases or mysteries or, just illnesses, because we're dealing with a character who deals with medicines and poisons, and often it's just, oh, this character has this illness, or what's going on here.
Mama does not get paid enough for this bullshit, bro. The amount of things that Mama has done for the rear palace and the outer palace is ridiculous. She's not just an apothecary. She's low-key a doctor too. She's like a mental therapist too. She does sex education as well. She's a detective on top of that. Like, she does so much for this goddamn palace. The Emperor has a debt he could never fucking pay back.
But then it starts evolving into political sabotage. And around like episode 16 to 18, I forget exactly where, a lot of what was seemingly episodic moments come together to this kind of grand, almost assassination plotline. And
yeah, the episodic nature being these side quests, right? The explosion in the warehouse with the pipe on it. The person who died of drinking too much salt, but also there was the other dude, who's bringing some sort of weird seaweed from the south and being very jealous of Big Brother's promotion and stuff like that. There was also like the metal master guy, and his sons, and the ceremonial tool. And at that time, you're doing all these side quests, and you're like, it seems like they're all just self-contained episodic quests. Okay, but it's like, no, they all come together. How? Through Suide.
And that's really cool. What you initially thought was just random episodic, almost slice of life, day-to-day adventures of, political sabotages, illnesses in a world that doesn't have like modern healthcare like our own, which is really enjoyable. And to see how it all kind of came together to this
Guess he lives in America. Not that really great in Canada either, right? So you just basically wait for a shit long time instead.
bigger
If you have money, it's better to be in America for healthcare. In Canada, even if you have money, you can't really expedite it.
punchline was enjoyable, but I've seen that done before. What you initially think is just one thing, it's actually a bigger conspiracy. But what I haven't seen done before is how hard the final 2 episodes have flipped my opinion not only on a character,
Lakan.
but of the entire goddamn show. And what I mean is your main.
I had this feeling in episode 4 or something. The episode that you know, the concubine that tripped and the emperor like shunned her, and it was a secret plot for her to act like, you know, like a buffoon to get kicked out because she had a love interest, childhood friend who was like the military guy who also almost died, by the way, in the like episode 2 or something, regarding the they're like in a village and people were like eating rations and foods and they got poisoned, right? It wasn't his fault. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, at that point, at that early game on, I was like, oh shit, the way that like this show, the storytelling, the amount of misdirections it does with the theme of like love and people yearning for something beyond their roles in the palace, it blew my mind. And I was like, okay, this is very unpredictable.
Character Mao Mao, right? Her biological father and what they did in the final 2 episodes. There's pulling the rug from under your feet, and then there's Truck Kun running and reversing over you a dozen times tenfold. I am blown away by not only how hard they flipped my perception of him as a character, but his entire story flips the entire interpretation of Mao Mao's life. And I can't remember the last time I've been so, like, had such a change in tune about a
I feel like this has happened with the ReZero as well. If we're going to be talking about the misdirection, what is the core element Brandon is talking about? You got misdirected like crazy. The amount of things that Lakan was doing and saying, which is partly out of guilt because he probably thought he's the bad guy for what's happened to Mao Mao's mom, right? But he was playing like the villain role, saying like, oh, what do you think I did to that courtesan? I guess I had to, you know, knock her value down and stuff like that. The way that he was talking to Jinshi so menacingly. That soundtrack also doesn't really help. The piano soundtrack, whenever he shows up, I think it's called like Red Bud. It's such a good soundtrack, but it's quite sinister in nature. And all these different things set you up to expect this guy to be just bad, to be evil, because that's what the show is showing you. But then it subverts your expectations like crazy because of the amount of misdirections it does. And I feel like the misdirection element is common in ReZero as well.
Show, because really, I would say up to episode 22. I don't really give numerical ratings. I think they're pointless. But I'd say it's a pretty damn great, if not amazing show. Like, it does exactly what it sets out to do. But those last 2 episodes, it just elevated it to such a degree that obviously first impressions, last impressions, they last with you a bit longer. But I mean, my first impressions and last impressions are all kind of in the span of like a 5-day window of watching this show. But I
he rushed that shit.
Remember the last time I've seen the final 2 episodes, not only because I've seen it reshape a character's perception I've had, but his story and how I just thought he was gonna be the,
like, even the whole like, I can't see people for people, right? We see him looking at people as like shogi pieces or go pieces, and at that point we're thinking, what a fucking sociopath, what a maniac. He doesn't even see human people for human beings, right? He just sees them as tools. And again, another misdirection as we realize that it's a fucking biological condition that he had to work with.
This creepy guy. I was like, even if he turns out to be nice, there's no way, like, oh my god. Just the way that all these episodic or simple stories cultivate into this brilliant story that I think it adapted 2 of the light novels, right? I think it's the 24 episodes. I think every 12 episodes it was roughly a light novel. Just brilliant shit, but I don't regret waiting to watch this. In fact, I'm kind of glad I did because, like I said, I got a week to wait for episode 1 of season 2, but Jesus. Can't believe I'm saying it, but yeah, like, that man and his story, the weirdest thing too is, while I assume there'd be an interesting story just given kind of the foreshadowing earlier into the season, just the fact that he became my favorite part of the entire goddamn show, and how Mama's story, and then obviously her adoptive dad, and how it's just mind-blowing stuff.
That's right. The identities, right? One of the best things about Apothecary Diaries is the constant questioning of what the identities are. In the beginning, Mama's identity is very odd because it's just like, what the hell is she doing here? As like, you know, just like a random kid, but her dad is like super old and there's no mom. What's going on? Go to the rear palace. We see Jinshi, and later on we get to know that Jinshi's identity, there's another person that looks just like Jinshi's, Ado. And then the whole baby swap mechanic thing blew my fucking mind. The revelation that like Mama's dad is actually her great uncle, which I don't think Mama even knows at this point because it's Lakan's uncle, right? That is Lumen. And it's just like, that's fucking crazy to me. And then there's the other stuff happening with the we already talked about the Emperor's little brother position, right? With, Jinshi, swapping the places. We talked about, there's another identity thing going on. Well, a little bit different. Sweden's plot twist, right? That was also identity driven because it's just like she was basically just cosplaying as a man, and it fucking blew my mind. She was the one going around, and she's the one that pretty much poisoned that old man too with the really salty drink, right? What else is there? There's one more crazy identity thing that's missing right now. I can't think of it though.
Overall, though, I will say this show does a
Baba. What the hell is Baba at the Verdigris Palace? I feel like she could be a very important person. She very well could be Mama's grandma. You never know, right? That's like a fair guess. But there's that Baba, and then there's also Suiren Baba, right? Jinshi's Baba. What the hell is she? There's just like the identity guessing game is very fun in Apothecary Diaries.
a very good job right away of making you like the MC. So Mao Mao is not your normal persona for a female lead. She is just, she's crazy. There's no other way to put it. Like, this is the type of girl that if you gave her a glass full of poison, she'd be like the Grinch who stole Christmas before he stole Christmas, and his smile's going up to his ears.
I mean, if you think about the personality traits of her mom and dad, it makes a lot of sense why she's a crazy bitch. I love Mao Mao. She's so stoic in nature and very independent. Quite the Sigma female, if I may say so myself. She doesn't take bullshit from anybody. She doesn't mind being insulted by other people, but as soon as a life is on the line, she gets so fucking serious. Like the whole slapping moment when she said Li was lady servants in place.
I just love her mannerisms, her persona, and just watching her interact with a world where, you know, you start with a character who really you assume is kind of in the lowest of the low territory. Like the intro of the damn show is like, hey dad, I'll be out for a little bit, and then immediately gets kidnapped. And like just how casual she was about the whole kidnapping was just,
and how casual Lumen was too about it.
Hilarious. And the overall vibe of being thrown into this kind of political situation where you're not really dealing with a lot of the politics on like a super state level or anything. It's all kind of like, what would a servant over here with a lot of this stuff? But over the course of it, especially because as we grow with one of these characters, Jinshi, who, you know, is supposed to be a eunuch, but I mean, as soon as I saw the dude's...
Oh, that stuff too, right? Jinshi was also drinking a suppressive drink to keep his, you know, eunuch status ambiguous, right? Another fucking plot twist. It's just like, what the fuck?
Face, I was like, in episode 1 or 2, whatever it was, I was like, there's no way this dude's a eunuch. It's clearly going to be something else. And then, of course, over the course of the story, we learn, yeah, there's clearly some political rumblings going on here. It's actually a deeper, you know, mission, so to speak. I mean, it's around episode 19 or something like that where we actually see how he suppresses his manhood with a drink that apparently tastes horrible. And it's really interesting because a blind man can see that he's very much interested in Mao Mao, like on a romantic level, but she has like the complete opposite feelings towards him.
She hates it.
It's not because like he's not her type or anything. She literally says like anyone would be swoon, man or girl. Like, and
I don't think that necessarily means that like Jinshi is her type or not. Right? Objectively, Jinshi is beautiful. Mama can acknowledge that, but I don't think Mama really gives a fuck about his objective beauty. Mama does get along with Jinshi well, though, when he is more serious rather than flirtatious and, what's the word? Kind of like deceptive in the beginning, the way that he treats the other girls. You know, how he's all smiling and has that like pretty boy status, and you know, he can coerce any girl to do something, and Mama finds that really fucking cringe. But later on, the more serious Jinshi gets, the more Mama is like, I like this side of him more.
It's just like the fact that she just assumes he has no manhood, and that's like it's just the misunderstandings. I think that's one of my favorite parts about the show is the misunderstandings of the show and just how it creates such comedy whiplash. But each of the little missions or little events that we have go on, and how the first big moment that really shows you that the show's deeper than you initially think. Because even if you're loving every episode up until the assassination attempt on Jinshi's life, it's very much like, you know, you could understand why some people would be like, oh, you know, like I just prefer more story-driven stuff. So while it's, because really it's slice of life up to that point, and then all these like different moments, whether it was, you know...
Is it slice of life up to that point though? It may seem episodic in nature because it seems like we're taking on random quests here and there, but... in the beginning, I was always so geared to think that, like, how is all of this going to tie into the main plot? And what is even the main plot? There isn't really a main plot. It's just Mao Mao's experience in the Rear Palace. as she stumbles across other secrets and therefore the consequences that come with it.
Here's this dude who worked with metal and how, with his sons and how it beams in if it will like kind of melt the lock a bit so they could bond. It's just like, okay, yeah, that's a really cute story. And then how that relates to an assassination attempt later on and just the emotion that it conveyed. It's just, they did such a good job with the characterization. And then when you realize how much deeper they're going to go with the story and narrative, it all starts to click. You're like, okay, yeah, there's an understandable reason the show got popular. The thing that really kind of like cemented me watching more was episode 4, because the first 3 episodes enjoyable for me, but I was still waiting for like that big hook, and it was when Mao Mao freaked out, like her emotion, the way
slap
she
moment,
conveyed herself, and just the slapping of the lady in waiting there, just because of the mistake of, because there's like this powder, right, the makeup that's actually poisonous, and she's been continuously applying it even though it's been banned because, well, the shade looks great on her, but that almost killed her. And just like the way she goes from someone being tossed on her ass every other frame to I'm the captain now, it just made me want to see more of her character.
And why did she do that? She was treated like shit the entire time. Lihua's bitches were so rude and constantly kicked her out. Mao never took it personally though. She doesn't care. She could not care less about other people insulting her. But it's just like when a life is on the line, she seems to value life really, really importantly. All life seems to be really important to her. And she just flips the fuck out and slaps a bitch. And that was a great moment. But even before this moment, the slap was obviously amazing. I think episode 3, though, was like the moment when I realized that this show is something different. Because like I just could not have guessed the outcome of why did that girl trip? Why is she dancing on top of the walls? What the hell is happening right now? And when the revelation of, holy shit, she was lying the entire time for the sake of true love outside a palace, that broke my mind. And I was like, Apothecary Diaries truly is just such a giga brain show, man. Thank you, RYQN, for that 5 gifted subs, man. I appreciate that, buddy.
And it wasn't until episode 23 and 24 that I felt like the anime reached that point again for me. But that's not to say every other episode prior to that was bad. It's just that was a level of emotion and just my eyes glued to the screen that nothing else really got across. But Jesus, man, like her biological dad, like I have to commend this. The way they go from who's supposed to be this kind of creepy guy, I always want to see her, and she wants nothing to do with him, to actually... he's desperately trying to make up for what he considers this big mistake because he fell in love with this courtesan who he misunderstood the situation, was pregnant. He was gone for 3 years. She got all of these diseases.
I blame the Baba for this shit, though. Lakan is a victim. He honestly got used. Didn't Mama even say something like that? How could have Lakan have known? He got all this shit forced onto him. Bro was just chilling and wanted to see her and just play games here and then. Mama literally implied that mom may have timed it perfectly to basically trap him into that moment, right? And I'm pretty sure that's what was mentioned in episode 24.
And all he wants is to desperately be with his daughter, kind of make amends. And worst of freaking all, he thinks, because it's not until the end of the first season that he knows that she's actually here under a contract. From his point of view, Jinshi is basically like keeping her as a slave, so he's desperately doing everything he can as a father to free his daughter, and it's just one big misunderstanding. And the way they come together, man, it's beautiful. It really is. It's such a beautiful
slave. What? I don't remember Lakan being mad that Jinshi had Mao Mao as part of his team. I remember him being pissed off during the game of Go because Jinshi touched her shoulder like 3 separate times, which he counted. Is this a real thing? Did I miss something? I don't ever remember Lakan ever saying that shit. Other than like, oh, that's kind of rude of you that you stole her from me. I remember that line, right? I remember that line when we first met, but okay.
Freaking show. And on the topic of beauty, probably one of the most beautiful television anime I've ever seen. I don't know what it is, but the backgrounds and most of the time the character models feel like a goddamn movie. Like,
that's right. Toho OLM, they did an amazing job producing this anime. An anime where very limited, action sequences, right? Nothing is really necessitating crazy production value. Everything is just dialogue, meetings, yapping, like 10 story season 3. Yet, why was Apothecary Diaries so much better than 10 story season 3 in terms of the dialogue and how to keep audiences engaged throughout that dialogue? I don't know. It's just the overall direction. It's the overall direction, the soundtracks, right? It's just like, just because it's yapping and talking scenes doesn't mean it's boring. The entire anime is just talking and yapping, but because of the different crazy mysteries happening, the constant guessing of people's identities and motives, the amazing soundtrack, and the great direction overall from this team, Apothecary Diaries, bro, it's just on another level.
It's just gorgeous to look at. The voice actors were great. The music was great. Just, man, I'm still in disbelief because I'm coming off of 23 and 24. So yes, it's fresher on my mind, but I'm still thinking about episode 4, mind you. It's just,
you really enjoyed that slap.
Family, and Mao looks at face value to be just the most commoner person, and how she connects on a deeper political level is just so brilliant.
And now, because Mao is technically, I'm not sure if the marriage actually happened, but like, if Mao gets actually recognized as the daughter of the greatest strategician in the outer palace, wonder what that says about her rank in the palace. I mean, she's already like Jinshi's like, you know, secretary, like lady, right? So she's pretty high up there, but wonder where season 2 is gonna go.
Interested to see where they're going to take that story. Hopefully her dad and her mom get a little bit of time, because obviously the mom's not doing too hot. But yeah, just top to bottom.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much implied that this is like, she's gonna die, right? Episode 24 pretty much implied that like there's not much time left. Syphilis has taken over. It's beyond, you know, the point of, you know, return. Lacan basically just spent all his fucking money just having a huge party and celebrations for her, right? The entire district has like lanterns and special like decor up, and it's just one last bang, I guess.
Bottom, this show at the very worst was good, and for the most part stayed at a great level for me. But the way they flipped a character like her dad on its head to such a degree that it reshaped my opinion on Mao and her story. And obviously it's tragic when you look at it from her perspective too, because like her real first memory of this man is this pathetic image of him like almost reaching out to her, and then just like the idea of losing your finger. It's just brilliant shit. This show is beautiful, and I'm so excited to check out season 2 next week. But yeah, I can't believe it. I've shifted my opinion on shows before, but never quite as hard as the final 2 episodes of season 1 did for me. Let me know what you thought.
The Odd Duo episode blew my fucking mind too. The episode where Mama confronted Odd Duo's main lady, right? And the revelation that she accidentally killed a baby, but who was that actual baby? It wasn't Odd Duo's child. It was the previous emperor's. Sorry, it's the previous emperor's child, right? Because again, the baby swap thing happened, and then the whole like tragic, you know, talk there, the amazing soundtrack happening, Mama confronting her. That episode was fucking insane too. There's a lot of really amazing moments from this, like the slap moment, Mama like activating her like Conqueror's Hockey and like flexing on Jinshi, stuff like that. The assassination attempt, of course, comes to mind, with Jinshi walking Mama down the fucking palace in a really slow way while she's bleeding out while the song is playing, which is kind of hilarious. Suide's plot twist. I'm surprised that Brandon didn't mention Suide's plot twist, but like that shit was also fucking next level. Suide really added like another layer of like complexity into the show as you realize who was the mastermind behind this. And it doesn't really stop at Suide, I don't think either, because like I think that Lulan, right? The new concubine that showed up, and her dad. I think that because of the way that the dad was so hostile towards Jinshi at the second garden banquet, makes me think that like there's something more that meets the eye with the assassination attempt on Jinshi. But that's pretty much it. Apothecary Diaries is an amazing anime. I'm glad I was able to check it out. One of those shows that obviously I wasn't able to do during the seasonal time because my channel was too small back then and the audience just wasn't there. Here's a link to the video though. Go check out Mr. H. Brandon's channel out. Give the video a like if you did. And there's one more anime that I wish to catch up on, and it's gonna be Dungeon Meshi. When Dungeon Meshi comes out, season 2 release date, I mean, we will do the same thing with Apothecary Diaries, and fingers crossed.